Goat. I'm Aaron. And I'm Chris. And we're here because Aaron has to go watch Reservoir Dogs. He hasn't seen it. No spoilers, but we got to hurry.
We don't have to hurry. I have seen it. I've never seen it on the big screen.
9 stars.
It makes me wonder.
Whistles.
Barney Fife would not last 2 seconds with Mr. Blonde.
No, he really would not.
I mean, we're watching another episode where Barney gets taken for a ride, but I will have to say, I kind of think I feel like they've done something like this before, but I kind of enjoy the approach they take.
I've got no complaints with this episode. I thought it was fun.
I don't either. We're doing TV
which means TV. My recap is going to be great. You're going to say stuff and be like, yeah, I liked it.
Well, that makes for great podcasts. So We're doing TV or not TV. This episode first aired on March 1st, 1965. We open with Andy and Barney reading a story about Andy in a publication called Law and Order.
So I was watching this with my wife, and Kristen looks at me. She's like, wait, Law and Order? I was like, calm down. Calm down. Can I tell you my favorite Law and Order story?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So there's a local law firm in town that has like a private parking sign. Others will be towed. But they did it in the Law and Order TV show font with like the red outline. And my friend's dad works there, and she saw the sign and asked us, like, why did you do the Law and Order font? And he had no idea. I think maybe someone designed it and never explained why it was a weird choice, but they thought it was funny and then put it up.
That is funny. I got to be honest with you. Law and Order is, of all the shows on TV that are just procedurals that you can just binge watch, Law and Order might be my favorite.
Oh, I love Chicago Fire.
Chicago Fire?
No, I'm just kidding. I've never seen it. It looks bad.
I mean, it is just so funny. I think after a certain point, there are shows that you can at least watch. I think the thing about Law and Order is it's just so focused on the case that you're not really dealing with all the personal issues. I mean, they do show up later, but I mean, it is really like, even if you're like, well, this is kind of oversimplifying things, it's still just one where it's like, and you're like, I wonder where this case is going to go.
Well, okay, so let's actually take this back to the AGS, Andy Griffith Show. In some aspects, Tags is a procedural show. Barney gets duped. Someone tries to steal money. Andy figures it out at the last second. And then the epilogue, they make a funny comment.
I mean, obviously I've seen this episode several times. Watching it the first time, did you know they weren't a TV?
I actually
TV
did not. I was duped.
Oh, okay. So you and Barney both duped.
Both duped. Yeah. I mean, I had once they left the courthouse a little bit, I was like, oh, I bet they're probably gonna scam him. And then they walked into the hotel room and they're like, we got you now. I'm gonna fly out my producer. It's like, come on. Respect the audience member a little bit more, Well,
I think the other thing is I'm kind of like, when I feel like seasoned bank robbers don't go introduce themselves to an entire town before they commit a bank robbery. That's just me. I mean, I'm kind of like, we want to keep a lower profile.
Yeah, I mean, I could see both sides, but like in Mission Impossible 2, where they have those they've got the masks that are in all the Mission Impossibles, and then the thing that goes over the throat to change the voice.
Yeah,
they've got a really good way to change their appearance. Then I would do that so that they're able to scope it all out. But
yeah, I mean, Mission Impossible 2, it was just finally like, okay, is anybody who they say they are? I mean, it was so many mask changes in that movie.
I know.
Yeah. So the magazine is a national sheriff's magazine. The magazine article is called Sheriff Without a Gun, but they misspelled Barney's name, and it is it's Fice instead of Fife. Which we'll hear throughout. Yeah, Barney Fice. Obi wants to take the magazine to show his friends, and Andy also shares that he got a telegram that a TV writer was coming to visit. And
that really makes you think,
What does it make you think about?
who like everyone is just a moment away from making it in Hollywood Boulevard.
You can
One
get this.
small publication on sheriffs, you know?
I mean, it's
We're
a
about to
national
break out.
publication. It's a national publication.
We're about to
You know,
break out. I know, but
we're-
like AOPA is like the Airline Owner Pilot Association. That's a national publication. You're going to tell me that that periodical is likely to pitch a TV series?
I mean, I think at this point, it's kind of like, at this point, no. I mean, because I think so much of the movies today and not as bad with television, obviously, but with movies today, it's like, hey, what can we do a sequel to or a remake?
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah. So Barney comes in saying he heard the article came out and he wanted to take a look. He sees that his name is misspelled. He's not happy, but Andy then shows Barney the telegram and he's excited. And the next morning, Andy is meeting with a writer whose name is Alan Harvey and the production assistant who's Pat Blake. And they are saying this would be a new angle for what they're saying is a tired genre. And they'd like to follow Andy around and see how he operates so they can put together a great story. And Miss Blake is played by Barbara Stewart, who played Sergeant Carter's girlfriend, Bunny, on Gone
For some reason,
Wild.
I decided you were going to say like Barbara Streisand, and she comes out and she's Babs, you know.
Yeah, no, she is not. She played, she was Sergeant Carter's steady girlfriend on Gomer Pyle. And in comes Barney with a rifle and his cap fastened with his chin strap, which he just looks, he's quite tight. And Barney then tells them how he's done a little acting himself and that he usually gets a role in the local play, which that's the big time. Yeah, it's some waiting for Guffman territory.
But if we also fact check that, he gets a role and then he gets pulled out because he's a bad singer.
Yeah, he does get canned.
He does get the role.
Yeah. The writer then points out that Barney carries a gun, even though Andy doesn't. Barney waxes poetic about his gun, calls it a number of things like Old Roscoe and other names, and then he takes them on a tour of the jail.
What's the Roscoe? Do you know what that is a reference to?
I mean, I just know it's
governor of Montana.
No, I don't think so. I think it's just always this. I don't know where the term Roscoe came up.
Okay.
Miss Blake asks Andy why she doesn't carry a gun, and he gives what has become a pretty famous quote about respect versus fear because of a gun. That gun,
I loved it.
It has been used by gun. It has basically been pulled into the gun control debate because it's kind of one of those.
I can see it now. It's like an infographic on Facebook that your aunt shares.
I saw John Oliver use it one time on Last Week Tonight, which did it
really try to find people in the middle? This is the line that really brings people in.
I have always felt like John Oliver, and I don't mean if we ruffle some feathers here, I apologize, but John Oliver, I feel kind of like says, "This is my position, and if you don't agree, you're stupid." Is kind of I think the approach that he takes.
The best, I loved the Strike Force 5 podcast, and John Oliver described his show once of he takes a big deep breath and then shouts for 45 minutes and doesn't
pretty
stop.
Pretty much.
Another thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's his shtick. But so he says that. But the thing is, I've heard so many mixed reports on this. I've heard, and they even referenced this later in the show, that Andy Griffith really actually had back issues, and he just doesn't want to carry that extra weight around his hips. So they kind of wrote that in. I mean, I think it works better the fact that he doesn't carry a gun. But
they make a comment there.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a real comment.
Yeah, that is kind of something I've heard. I don't know if it's verified. I don't know how verified it is. I've never asked Randy Turner, who would probably be, if anybody would know this, it would be Randy.
I'm ready to verify it right now. It is correct.
Okay. Well, you heard it here. Christopher, Andy Griffith aficionado and expert, is telling you this is true.
At your service, fans.
So Andy goes to take the writer on tour and leaves Miss Blake to type up her notes at the computer. And outside, the writer meets Goober and Floyd, and Andy explains why the writer's here. And Floyd and Goober explain that they have both been deputized. Did you notice that he introduced Goober as Goober Beasley?
Yes, yes. And so I was gonna go back, but I was streaming it from my phone, and it was way too difficult. I was gonna ask you what the last name was because he's Goober Pyle.
He is Goober Pyle. So this was originally, I guess they were trying Beasley, and they ultimately went with Goober Pyle.
Do you think they were trying to have him be related to Aunt Beasley?
I don't think so. I mean, because we've already seen him introduced multiple times as Gomer Pyle's cousin.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know. Maybe they were wanting to just because Goober Beasley is a funny name. I mean, it's not as funny as Gomer Pyle.
Cousins. They could be like maternal cousins.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe they were. I think they were just toying around with it. And later that evening, they drop the writer off at the hotel, who says he's going to call his producer and have him get on a plane, which is kind of
the old red eye from LAX to
Mayberry, North Carolina. I mean, I don't. I've always heard airline travel was a lot more fun in the swinging 60s and 70s, but I don't get the impression that they just had a lot of directs from LAX to Raleigh for the most part.
Yeah, it definitely not, at least until the real Jet Jackson came on the air, and then he moved his whole production team from LA to North Carolina so that he could be at home.
There you go. So they leave, and the writer goes to his room, and lo and behold, there's Miss Blake and another guy named Gilbert Jamel, and it turns out they're actually here to rob the town.
Oh no!
Oh yeah! And we go to commercial, and Mr. Jamel is played by Gavin McLeod, who played Murray Slaughter on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and that was a pretty iconic character. And then he's the ship's captain on the Love Boat. So he looked familiar to me, and I was like, where have I seen this person before? And then I looked this up.
Oh, isn't the internet a marvelous thing?
It does make life a little easier, I will have to say. You can't just basically be like, I have a hot take and no way to verify it.
I hope this isn't controversial, but I agree with that statement.
I have a hot take and I have no way to verify it.
No, that the internet's handy.
It is handy. It is handy. This episode was produced by Pod Machine. They do a great podcast at a great rate. I was fortunate to get started on this a few years ago, and I've just been very, very pleased with it ever since. I mean, they will edit your podcast. They will do artwork for your podcast. They'll do the YouTube videos for the podcast, and they have a very quick turnaround time once you upload all your material. So I highly recommend it.
I'm pro pod in general. I love bean pods. I like pod hotels. I like pod apples, maybe. But you know what pods I like best? Pod machines.
Pod machines. Me too.
I like them better than podcasts. I honestly don't even really like podcasts that much. So I'm just thankful that you're here.
Why do you do this podcast?
To see your dimples, baby.
To see my dimples. Well, and if you really push hard, my Pod Machine might be able to give you some dimples. I don't know. So go to podmachine.com to learn more and enter Loaded Goat at checkout for a 10% discount.
And that's spelled just like Loaded Goat.
After the break, Andy comes into the jail and Barney is typing up a story for the show. When Andy says he's not a writer, Barney says, neither was that woman up north, but she wrote that Peyton Place. It's actually Peyton Place for what it's worth.
Okay.
Yeah. In come the three TV people. They want to sit down and discuss a story idea for the first show. This is just, I'm like, you're just overplaying your hand here. I mean, it just starts to get a little like, wait a minute. But Barney's not picking it up, and he keeps wanting to tell them his idea. They present a story on the bank robbery and ask Andy if it is feasible, and Barney says, sure, I'm sure they've got $50,000 in the bank right now. And then he offers to show them around the bank, and Andy invites them over for dinner and stays with Miss Blake, who gets all flirty. And then Barney takes them in the bank where they see Asa sacked out in his chair, and Mr. Meldrin, the bank owner, greets them and just says to look around and says that and that everything the bank has is yours.
I'm a big fan of Asa. I think Asa's great.
Yeah, I mean, he's just what a great character. And that night at dinner at the Taylor household, Andy asks when they plan on making the picture, and they're a little coy and then say they have to head out and get back to work. And they leave, and Aunt Bee and Opie go back to bed, or go to bed. And I'm just sitting here going, this is just, Andy still doesn't seem like he's he
No,
seems like he's not. It's not clicking
the
yet
way
at this
that this
point.
plays out is it's like Andy like looks out a window and all the pieces fit together perfectly, and it's he maybe could have been a little bit more skeptical throughout, but there aren't a lot of hints from his perspective that I know of.
No, I mean, there's. I don't know. Are there? I feel kind of like all the like.
All the
Okay,
king's
so
horses and all the king's men.
I no, I think there's a level of they obviously they don't know how television production is supposed to work, but they've had people come to town before posing as FBI agents, wanting to give them awards. They've had people come to town and pull all kind of ruses to rob people. So naturally, I would imagine Andy's got to be skeptical. I think also the thing is Andy, one of the things we also say about Andy is Andy's warm and gracious, but Andy also keeps his cards kind of close to the vest too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one of the robbers left his hat, and Barney agrees, or it's Mr. Jamel left his hat, and Barney agrees to take it to the courthouse on his way home. And as he does, Barney sees a light in the bank, just a flashlight going, and he fidgets with his gun a bit and goes in. And they're like
before we get there, that's like a commitment to public service too. Like somebody leaves a hat in my house, I'll be like, cool, I will give it to him next time I see him. I'm not gonna like take this in with you to the station the next morning.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought, just take it into the station the next morning. But I guess Barney's on his way home anyway.
Yep.
And so I guess that's what they're gonna do. But Barney goes in with his gun, and the three robbers are down ready to fire at him. But they get the idea of just kind of walking out without any violence, and they tell him Mr. Meldrum let him in. Barney believes them, and they say they want him to help stage a scene. And they basically give him the bag of money to walk out with. And just then, Andy walks
Super
in.
Smart. They don't commit the crime.
Yeah, Andy walks in and basically realizes what's happened. He opens the bag, and they
tens of dollars.
Were those tens?
Yeah, they were tens.
Oh man, dropping Alexander Hamilton's out of that bag. Yeah. Andy goes to arrest them, and they remind him that he doesn't have a gun. I mean, I think they're kind of saying, "Hey, you're not going to stop us." And Andy goes, "No, I don't, but my deputies do." And we cut to Goober and Floyd holding shotguns on them from the car.
Classic.
And then we go to commercial. Classic Beasley. I kind of was thinking Andy might want to. Before I went to all the trouble of arming Goober and Floyd, I probably would pack a gun myself.
Yeah, because he carries a gun sometimes.
Yeah, when he needs to. So Barney's in the epilogue. Barney has still not learned any lessons, and he's telling Andy why this would make a good show. And what is very just slow finish, or not it doesn't end like with a huge bang. He just tells Andy about an episode where Andy's out of town, and then he's sick. So Barney is the star of the show, and he spoils a robbery, and then we close.
The things we learn. It was fun. Like it came together so predictably at the end. But I did enjoy this. I thought it was fun. They had new actors that were kind of showing up in a new fun way. I liked the LA tie-in. I thought it was nice, albeit a very predictable formulaic piece once it got rolling.
I agree. I mean, it just was. Hold on one second. I need to pull something up here. I'm sorry. I realized I didn't put the next episode in. So I think one of the things I would say on this is just that I agree it's formulaic. It really is not it's just one of those things where as I watch these, as you just watch them back to back to back, you are kind of like, okay, I know you've seen this, it's coming. It is, while Barney Fife is such a fun character to watch, you're just kind of like, Barney, come on.
Yeah, no, totally. Come on, girl. Come on, girl.
Come on, Barney. But, like I said, it was a fine episode. How many whistles would you give this?
I'll give this 8.
8?
How about you?
I think I'll go with 8. I mean,
Ooh, 8's all around. 8 is great.
8 is, I mean, the thing of it is like I haven't done this much critical thinking on the Andy Griffith Show ever. And so once we really start talking about this in a podcast, it's like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but here are some other thoughts,
Yeah. That's why people pay us the big bucks, because we provide a critical eye.
We are rolling in the moolah. I mean,
Preach it, girl.
podcast host with no money. That's the article about us.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to tell me twice.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I promised you riches and I have not delivered.
But it's gonna pay out at the end of that, I'm optimistic.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
Always good to see you today. I hope you like the very happy ending of Reservoir Dogs.
Oh yeah, it ends on such a great note. I'm really excited about it. I'm going just to really get uplifted. It's kind of like I've been just down in the dumps, and I said, what'll make me feel better? Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, please like and subscribe, and if you want to Venmo us money, check us out.
Yeah. Message us and we'll give you our Venmo. Next week we'll do guest in the house. And until then, Christopher, everything that the bank has is yours.
Oh, that means the world.